Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners, where we work our way through the Malazan books in publication order. We are at the pretty much very beginning of this reading group. We are going to be wrapping up Gardens of the Moon today. We've been spending the last 4-ish weeks gushing about how Steven Erikson can sure write a sentence, and we'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future until we hit Midnight Tides. I think that's when the first Esselmont book comes up.
Oh, I thought that's
We-
when it starts getting bad or something.
no,
Quality drops off a cliff. You're done. You're
So
toast at that
so
point.
That's what it sounded like.
so we'll not talk about how good it is. We'll start talking about how no. You heard everybody here with us today briefly, but they'll go around introducing themselves and also tell us what you're most looking forward to talking about this week. But apparently, it seems general confusion abounds, and we just need to figure it out together. Steve, could you start us off?
Sure, I'm Steve from Pagechewing and Steve Talks Books, and I'm most excited about talking about the humor that's sprinkled in, like the dragon mask that goes to the ball.
Yeah.
Thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, lots. I have some questions, but we'll get to that. I'm confused.
Dan?
I'm Dan from Patreon forums, I guess. I'm interested in talking about, I guess, the structure of this ending and the positives and negatives of doing it the way that Steven Erikson does in introducing so many things and explaining so little.
Sounds good. Shannon.
My name's Shannon. I'm from here. I don't know. And this is my
What's
second
your
time through the
address?
series, and I did understand the ending to this book much better this second time through.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you over Dan asking for your address. What did you say you want to talk about?
What I would like to talk about maybe is the fate, the duel. I like that a lot. And all paragraph or whatever it was.
Nice. Carl.
I am Carl. I am from. I can't think of a good quip. I was trying really hard there for a while. I was like, I also don't want to cross a line and say something wildly inappropriate, so I'm holding
Do
back.
it.
But what I'm most excited for is to actually talk into the mic I've had for years that I thought has been plugged in this entire time, but it's not. So if you notice a change in my sound quality, that is why. I don't know how long it's been unplugged, just mildly, just very slightly unplugged, just the smallest amount so that I never noticed. And yeah, now I'm just going to scream into the void for the next hour and a half. So I hope you enjoy that. I believe the kids call it ASMR.
The mic's gonna come up a lot more than the coolest scene ever of Anomander Rick turning into a gargantuan dragon. No,
Yeah, forget
the mic
Animator
is
Rick.
more interesting.
Way more interesting, way more important.
Yep. Way more. Right. With all that said, are we ready to jump into
Introduce yourself, adjunct.
Yeah, adjunct.
See, I never do that. You're just supposed to know who I am. Hi, I'm Varsha. I run the YouTube channel Reading by the Rainy Mountain and several of these podcasts, Page Burners and Speculative Speculations. You can find me on all of those. And the thing I most want to talk about today is what I just said, Anomander Rick turning into a dragon. That's the coolest thing ever. I don't know why, but it's my favorite scene, possibly in the not in the whole series, but one of my favorite scenes.
And for our listeners who are reading along, we are taking a week, right, before Deadhouse Gates.
Yeah, a week before Deadhouse Gates, and I think we're reading up to chapter 2 for Deadhouse Gates. That will make it so we can do book 1 in 2 discussions. I don't have my copy with me, but I bookmarked us off 6 discussions we can discuss.
cool.
Not 6, 8 8 discussions for Dead House Gates.
That sounds about right.
Jeez, this is gonna be a long journey.
Yeah.
I have a question for everyone. What was the moment, either on your first read through or this read through, that you felt yourself become invested in the story?
It's a good question.
Was the question what part of the story we got most invested in, or at what point in the story we
At what
became
point?
interested in the story?
Yeah. Yeah, at what point were you like, okay, I'm locked in?
I think it was probably, to be honest, in the second book. Because I think I just heard people say that you need to get through the first book and then it starts getting easier. Because I don't remember like being super like, oh, first book is my favorite or like really into it. But I remember the second one being like, oh, reading it, like wanting to read it a lot more while I was reading it.
For me, it was probably between books 3 and book 4, and maybe more into book 4, because I'm a huge fan of the Seven Cities stuff, and that was really what got me. Like, I liked book 3, like there was some stuff that I really liked with the Bridge Burners, but then when we get to some of those characters that are in the second book and the fourth book, like that's where I really locked in. I was like, oh, I like these guys.
For me, oh wait, I just skipped Steve. Sorry,
No, go
Steve.
for it.
That's just how brave in tooth rolls. So sorry. I couldn't even say the words right. I don't know if you noticed, but they very much tripped out of my mouth. It's just one of those days, y'all. It's one of those days. I was hooked into the series actually in Gardens of the Moon. And I think for me, it happened relatively early in terms of I just really liked the atmosphere of the world. It felt very grand and mysterious and gothic. I really liked how the gods interacted with everything and how mysterious they were and creepy and manipulative. So like Shadow Throne and Cotillion in particular. And I was attached to Gano's Perrin pretty quickly. I was surprised by. Um, in the story of Sorry, maybe it might have been. No, it was in the first part because I can distinctly remember it being like in a summer, like reading out in the sun and just like this shit's awesome. Like I'm here for this. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm here for this. And weirdly, I'm like the weirdo who really enjoyed book 1 even though I had no idea what was going on. And book 2, my first time, I didn't bounce off it, but it was much more of a grind. And then book 3 got me again. But all that said, I have read book 2 a second time and enjoyed it much more the second time, and I'm very excited to get to it this time with the context of the whole series. Yeah, Varsha, do you have a question to lead us off from there?
But Steve didn't go yet.
Oh, I'm still skipping.
Carl doesn't care about Steve.
That's how
I
Braven
told
Tooth
you,
rolls.
it's just how Braven Tooth rolls.
For this book, I think the one scene that got me hooked on this book was Paran seeing the aftermath of the hounds. The first time I read it, that was kind of what hooked me on this book. And of course, Hairlock. I love Hairlock. R.I.P. And but for the series, I think the first bit of Dead House Gates was really what pulled me in. And of course, book 4. That's a whole nother witness discussion. We'll get there, but yeah. But I think book 4 is really what I love. Book 4, but we'll get there.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't. I think I was technically invested from book 1 because I never DNF or never leave CDs unfinished unless it's Atlas Shrugged, and so I knew I was going to read all of it, so I was technically invested then. But Memories of Ice was when the series became one of my favorites. So, but I think we hear a name for the first time in this section, who will become interesting in the second book. With the, I guess we see a lot of instances of predictions and foreshadowing in this section too. We saw Fiddler's reading of the cards, and then I think to a certain extent, the masks that all the people were wearing at the fete were a bit reflective of what is to come, like with Rake and the dragon mask, and there was one other person who was wearing something interesting that not
Mammoth.
Rake, but the mammoth. Yes, the jaguar. Yes, thank you. That was it. So I really like the many ways of telling us what's coming that this series does, which I, completely flew over my head the first time over. But there are things that you guys noticed that were interesting in that regard, or shall we go straight to Crop and Murillo? I only read this 2 days ago. Every time Dan's read 3 weeks ago, I've read 2 days ago, and I remember as little as you do. What?
The question's about foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like there's a lot I definitely picked up on for the series as a whole. For this book in particular, I don't know. I'd honestly forgotten that Mammoth got possessed. Like that was just a complete blank in my brain. So that was really exciting. And the Jagged mask clicked after that. And then I was like, wait, why did he get possessed and not someone else? And then they kind of talk about it because he had like ventured, like astral projected into the barrow.
Yeah.
So that was cool. I don't know. Then the dragon mask. Yeah, I guess that was the one I noticed too, was Animander Rake's dragon mask. Because I've been waiting this entire book for Animander Rake to turn into a dragon. And yes, it was awesome.
Yeah. That was one of the coolest moments ever. And yeah, to your earlier question again, Carl, I think this may have also been one of the hooks for me for the series. Tatasale and Paran. I think what happens with Tatasale and her coming back on the Rivi Plains, that was interesting. But this scene made me go, wow, that's awesome. But
I had completely forgotten about that because I remember a couple of discussions ago I asked, "Oh, are we ever going to see dragons?" Talking about the deck of dragons. So I had completely forgotten dragons in the first book.
Yeah, I only remember Drake's transformation, actually. I didn't even remember that the demon he was fighting was also a dragon soul taken. And also I didn't remember the 5 others who battled Rice before that. None of that.
Was
I just
the demon
remember
also a
Drake.
dragon soul taken? Did I miss that? Is also the demon a dragon soul taken? I thought it was something else. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I forget.
He turns into a brown dragon of some sort.
Okay.
Some yak-colored dragon.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And
I also, I guess, I don't know if this is foreshadowing, but it is very much setting up what is both a thematic point and almost kind of a trope within the series, like an inner. For this Book of the Fallen specifically, it's a thing that recurs a lot, which is the Malazan Marines just kind of fuck shit up, like they just make things explode, like, big monsters come at them and they're just like, these monsters are really hyped up and the Marines just kind of deal with them. They just roast them and toast them.
Yeah. They did say the Moranth explosives have something to do with magic, like some weird interaction with magic, right? Yeah, I don't remember if this gets explained in the next books or not, but I'm kind of interested in that. If it ever gets explained, what's going on with the Morath and with their explosives.
Yeah, that bit about it, I didn't fully understand that myself. Actually, it said that if a warren was open, it would have sucked in the explosion. I couldn't fully understand what to make of it. Did it mean that the explosion would have been ineffective because the warren would have sucked up all the energy and so it wouldn't really have worked? Or would it have made the explosion worse?
Yeah, I thought that's what it would have done. Like if explosive would have reacted somehow with the magic. That's what I thought. But again,
Okay, yeah.
confused.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. Do the others have thoughts on that?
I don't even
Figured
remember
Steve
that.
just wanted to have grenades and said, "Okay, it's magic. There you go."
Okay.
And they are awesome. I mean, the Moranth munitions are, yeah, they're what I most think of with the Marines, or at least certain ones of them.
Yeah. I don't think they're magic too. I mean, maybe they have an interaction with magic, but I've always read it, and maybe I've been reading it wrong, as it's like the ingenuity of humans coming up against eldritch forces, and how, mankind, as scrappy as they are, manages to go toe to toe with gods just through the use of the things they've created that no other species
Are
has.
more of humans?
I believe that is an open
One of the
question.
Eslamont books gets into the origins and kind of history
Oh,
of the
okay.
Moranth. I'm not going to talk about them though here. We'll get to them eventually.
Okay. There's some
Okay.
ambiguity, right? If they're human or not.
At
That is
this
an
point,
open
yeah,
question.
they seem to be wearing some kind of insectoid armor.
Yeah.
But we haven't actually seen what one looks like. Like
Okay.
I don't think, right? We haven't seen one underneath the mask.
No. We
So we
see the
don't
bug
know
armor,
exactly
that's it.
what they are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't munitions seem a little bit more ruthless than all the magic that we witness from all the different characters? Munitions seem more primal and, I don't know, they seem more violent in some way, even though we see people get cut in half and people turn into dragons.
Yeah.
They have a different feel to them.
Well, it's explosive. It's yeah.
They're more tactile. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something a little more personal
Yeah.
and raw. I agree with. I mean, I don't know that they're any more destructive than magic, because magic, we've seen people get just like, I mean, literally in this sequence when Mamet is possessed, he basically disintegrates people. So, and like, or like burns them alive. I forget exactly if they're like burnt corpses afterwards or if they're like ash, but it definitely can do very destructive things. And yeah,
And
as we saw
yeah.
earlier with the when Tattersail was killed.
Yep.
Well, and I think
Oh, yeah.
Erikson does a really good job getting that feeling across about them, like Steve was just saying. Because it reminds me of, when I was in basic training, there was a very different feel to when you were on the grenade range than the shooting range. I mean, it's a different thing. And I do think Steve does a good job of capturing that. These are dangerous. They explode. It's less aimed, it's more explosive.
Right.
Bigger,
I still can't get over that they were
faster.
putting explosives under city streets to set off in the middle of a festival. Like they're straight up going to do a terrorist attack. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
didn't realize this place was filled with gas until the very end of the book, practically.
Yeah, they're like,
I
oh
thought
no, we would blow up the whole city.
I thought they
Bad deal.
knew what they were doing the whole time. I thought they were somehow planning to channel the gas things under the city. But then they just had this last minute realization where they're like, nope, we'll blow up much
Yeah.
more than we intend.
Fucking
Let's not do
city.
this.
It again, it's such a classic, like this is a trend for the Malazan Marines where like they will do the coolest thing you've ever seen and then also create their own problems constantly. It's just it's beautiful. I love it. I'm not like a big person into like military fantasy, but I love the way Erikson writes soldiers.
Yeah. That was hilarious, I think. I was like, what the hell else did you think was going to happen? And Kalam, and I had this whole theory about what was triggering Kalam's memory, because these guys wear hoods, and I was like, is it Hood, the god of death, or is it Krull, whom we see later in this set of chapters when he's talking to Krupp and Rice, and
Yeah.
it turns out he's just like, oh, you know what? We'll blow up the entire city. That's what was being triggered in his memory. Jeez. Is now a good time to talk about the humor situation, Steve, that you wanted to discuss?
Sure. Well, since you brought up death, I'm going to. One thing about this series that I'm not sure that I'm all that on board with is that no one's really ever dead.
Mm.
So when people die, it's kind of like, well, we're probably going to see them again. Am I on track here, or am I taking that for granted?
Yes and no. Little column A, little column B. You're right that this is definitely a series where dead doesn't mean gone, but there definitely are characters who stay gone. I am sympathetic to that complaint because there definitely are times where I feel like it would have been more powerful or more interesting for certain characters to stay dead. But
Yeah,
there,
I agree with Carl. Yeah, I think I mean there's some that stay dead, some that don't, and I think Steve's general defense to this is like, yeah, well, we see people come back in this series, but that's just in the series. According to the other billion people on the planet, they don't come back, and so death it's still rare to come back. And it's like, well, yes, but narratively that still is a flaw here, I think. So yes, and like Carl said, column A, column B. You're gonna
yeah,
see some people come
Yeah.
back continually through the series, and then some people are just gonna be gone forever.
But I guess people must like that, must like characters coming back, because otherwise, why would authors do it? And,
I
it's
think
a complaint of mine too, but I assume most people must enjoy having their favorite character come back, I guess.
I think you're right.
I'm one of those.
Okay.
I
I
I
I like
enjoy
it, but
I enjoy Resurrection if it's used sparingly.
mm,
Yes.
I
yeah,
think it has
yeah.
its place, but there is a point where it's like, okay, so is everyone just like on the table to come back? Like, is anyone gonna stay dead, And this series definitely straddles that line, and I think you could argue it falls on one way or the other. I don't know. I don't think there's a definitive answer because, you know, I
Mm.
mean, it's safe to say it's not a spoiler. Lauren is not coming back. Lauren is dead. Lauren is dead, dead.
I would assume. But
Yeah.
she's not like a main character, sort of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
The way the
I think
series is
is,
formatted, she really is. I mean, you have characters that are just main characters for one book.
yeah. I also think
Yeah.
the role she plays thematically is really crucial for the series as a whole. And she
Mm.
definitely is intentionally drawn in contrast or not I don't even know the partially contrast, but in conversation with another character who Erikson views as like the pivotal character for the series as a whole.
Yeah.
So I
But the way she's written is not a setup for her coming back the way that, for example, Paran or other characters would be, in my opinion.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But so the reason I mentioned that I'm one of the people who likes when characters come back though is that I like it when they come back as they are. In the series, sometimes I almost wish they didn't come back because they are so different when they do.
Mm.
Um, and it's not at all satisfying. It's like they've changed. I'd rather this was just another character. But I like what is done with the rebirth and whatnot, and it's great narratively and like storytelling wise for me. But in terms of the satisfaction of having a character come back because they died and I was attached to them, that I almost never got in the series. So yeah,
Mm.
do with that
Interesting.
information what you will.
Interesting. I definitely did. There definitely
Mm.
were a few times where I was like just like out of sheer I love this character. I'm glad this character is back. But I don't know. Does this even count? We're like dancing around it, and obviously resurrection is a thing because we've already witnessed it.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I don't know. There are instances. I guess talking within the context of the book, Silver Fox is one that I think was relatively well done. Like because she is literally an entirely different person, and it has huge ramifications for the story as a whole. I think all of that stuff is really interesting. There are some other cases that I think are similarly interesting. That said, Silver Fox again, I'm just not sold on the romance. I mean, again, the weight of the scene between Perrin and her is like just nothing to me. I'm like, okay, like I get it, but I feel like I'm being told that this is
Mm.
significant more than I'm like feeling it, you know?
I see.
Um, but that's been a constant criticism of mine, going back to my first read through, to be honest.
Makes sense.
What say you,
And
Varsha, the defender of them as this like forced together brief moment in time?
so there are two possible reasons for it, right? One is as a straight up relationship, and two people who were lonely or they were just unhappy for whatever reason, and they found each other and they had a brief, intense thing that made an impression on them. I I think I don't need the sort of behind the scenes development of that relationship to sort of get that from it. I can buy that. And the other possibility is that some of it was forced because of Baran's influence, external influence. And, and I don't know what to make of that, actually, the external influence, because I don't really see what Oban got out of that, other than what we maybe talked about before, where they're just sowing randomness into events. So this bit of randomness that feels unexplained could be due to Oban's influence. So in either case, I feel like it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Overall, I feel utterly neutral about it, which I think for most romances is a good place for me to be. And so yeah, I don't necessarily defend it as like the greatest thing ever, but I don't have a problem with it.
Fair enough. I think that is an interesting idea, that it is the chance element, this randomness that adds some additional layers to it. I just to briefly kind of dig more into like thematics, I did really appreciate how it became clear to me. I don't know that you could go as far as to say like any sort of answers to thematic questions are given, but that we definitely saw further exploration of the puppeteering, the marionette caught on strings, excuse me, in terms of like whether it be godly manipulation or manipulation of humans manipulating gods too, or the empire's whims manipulating people to just the structures themselves and the belief systems of people being like chains and strings playing them. And it does seem to me like the work is increasingly sort of positing that you need in some way to maybe not cut all your strings, but find a way to move more freely from them. And that, because it seems like the moral payoff, if there is such a thing, if you want to interpret the work through that lens, is for the characters who do not allow themselves to be driven by outside forces, but are driven by their internal moral compass, their sense of right and wrong, and goodness and compassion and grace. The preeminent example of that is the bridge burners, who end up actually acting very heroically in the city's defense and deciding not to terrorist bomb the city because they realized they'd blow it all up, which, it's a problem of their own making, but still. And so I don't think any of them even die, which isn't to say that death is like necessarily the only way to be judged, but it certainly stands in contrast to their highest superior, Lorne, who is cut down unceremoniously in an alley, which is in some ways a thematic high point for me. And in other ways, I wish it was done by characters who we had any sort of relationship with, rather than just random Crimson Guard people.
Well, she was killed by the two bartender girls, wasn't she? Or did I misread that?
Maybe I
the
misread it. I
final
don't know.
thing.
I thought it was Crimson Guard people.
I think they came to fight her, the Crimson Guard people, to prevent her
It was
from
Mies and
hurting
the other one.
Crocus.
Yeah,
But when she was
Mason
leaving the
Arata.
scene, they killed her. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
totally forgot that. I was like, wait, she just got killed by these two barmaids? Like, I had to
yeah.
reread it earlier today when I was
Mhm.
looking at that. I was like, wow, that's
Is
the
that who
mighty
they
Lauren
were?
taken out by
Oh,
Yeah.
is the see those
yeah,
the,
because she was after Crocus and they were trying to protect Crocus.
oh, interesting. So it wasn't the Crimson Guard. Because I thought it was the Crimson Guard and I thought this is so random. Like
Oh, but they did
I don't know.
fight her though. The Crimson
But
Guard
they
did
did,
Yeah,
yeah.
some
fight
people
her.
from the Crimson Guard did
Yeah.
appear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got that mixed up. So it was, oh, okay, that's cool. Actually, that's way more interesting. The barmaid's doing it. Okay, well, I'll have greater appreciation for it going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, yeah, she's got all this magic protection, and so yeah, just two barmaids kill her. I was like, okay.
That's actually awesome. Okay, I'm on board with that. That's cool.
Yeah, I couldn't remember how she died at all. But yeah, you
Yeah,
were
it's
saying
shocking.
something about in a moral compass, Carl, before we go on to the subject of who killed Lorne.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's like any sort of definitive statement. And I may be reading too much into things, but I do think that that is in some ways something that Erikson is grappling with here. I mean, that as I think you were the first one, Varsha, to point out the themes that are definitely being explored in this book, particularly as like an individual work within the series about, this manipulation really, and, the cost of it and the struggle to be free at all and to not just be played on someone else's or something else's whims. And that someone or something may be an actual like sapient entity, or it may be, a concept like empire or a belief system that, is externally in some way imposing itself upon you. And I definitely just found that it to me was striking that it seemed like there was a pretty clear, like Lauren I feel is in some ways a tragic character because she does have a really tortured, sad past, but she also acts while conflicted internally. Basically, she's constantly terrible and making bad choices and being cruel and working in support of imperial ambition and also her own quest for revenge, however brief that was. And it, it is fitting, if a smidge tragic, that she is just cut down unceremoniously in an alley. Um, while, other characters, like she doesn't do anything. That's kind of the point, is she unleashes the big force of nature, jagged tyrant, but other than that, like she doesn't accomplish any of her goals, which to me, maybe even more than the mundanity of her death, is a testament to her just failure as an individual. And it seems like a lot of that stems on a metatextual level from her inability to cut her strings.
Yeah. And she's a lot like raised in that, like not exactly, but in how little they manage to accomplish compared to what
Yeah.
they want to do. And raised is almost like a humorous counterpart to her, because I mean I'm gonna spoil Interstellar briefly for a moment. Is that okay? Everybody's seen it.
The movie Interstellar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie. So, that scene where Matt Damon blows up? It was terrifying and horrific the first time I watched the movie, right? But the second time, he blows up mid-sentence while he's giving a speech, right? Reading Raised again felt a bit like that now, because he's going on about how he's hurt Burn. He'll come back later to hurt Burn, and he's got this whole air of a kid who likes to torture ants with a magnifying glass, right? but then, but then but then he gets like trapped in this Azat house, and that's it. That's the end of it. And he does zero damage. So I was laughing the whole time I was reading his monologue, like inner monologue, because I knew what was coming for him. But yeah, they have these like big, well, in his case they're not noble, and Lorne, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting how much he's gone over to the side of the empire after being one of the original victims of it, right? And the others, they detest the idea of being a tool so much that they go actively uh fight against it. Like even uh Crocus, I think, for a brief time he celebrates the fact that he has luck on his side, but it can turn at any moment and he is at its mercy. So Paran, Crocus, they all realize that being tied to something comes with a cost, right? And Hairlock, I guess most of all, he had the string straight up chopped. So uh, being able to like rereading gave me a distance from the series that allowed me to sort of see higher level themes. I'm sure I'm missing quite a lot still, but at least seeing some things that tie up across the book as opposed to just, okay, what's happening in this scene, what's happening there, okay, what how does that make sense like logically versus, okay, let's look at some of the humanity of all of this and what the message is that's inherent in it. So yeah,
There,
I
there,
think
there, there is something very darkly humorous about Raced as a character. Like he is so larger than life and full of himself, and he does kind of come to nothing in the end. I mean, his backstory is full of him. Like we get his full backstory here, and like he was very
yeah.
successful and ruled for like thousands of years. And you know, he does stand in contrast to Lauren in that he is he cut his strings from the rest of the Jagged. You know, he became driven to essentially act in total opposition to the way his culture and his species as a whole operates. And I mean, I guess he was successful, but to me, I also read him as like the embodiment of conquest and imperialism, and how in many ways that can be ultimately self-destructive because you're essentially creating constant violence, and inevitably that means the violence is turned inwards onto you, and you will be reclaimed by the earth like all the empires before you. I'm really feeling that right now for no reason. And yeah, it's interesting. I think the Azoth house is a very intentional symbol, you know, and that it is literally like the earth itself. You know, what starts as an acorn that ends up beating Raced.
Is it? Well, we don't know anything about what it is for.
I was super confused with all that. What?
You don't get all the answers, but things do become clearer. You get trickles of lore about Azath houses, including in the next book. But
Yeah, I think I remember that, but I don't
even
remember.
separately, to me it's clear again just by the fact that like it is literally an acorn, like it is a seed that sprouts, and it is like roots that claim him, right? This is an earthen symbol, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I, after finishing this book, felt tempted to start Carcanis. And I'll just say that is there definitely is a distinct tie between the Earth and the Azath. Earth, like
Okay.
elementally, not like the planet Earth.
Interesting. So, I think we can maybe go over the stuff that was sort of slightly discussed in this book. One, the Finnist being the thing that sprouted the Azath. We know that because there were two instances of it. One, I forget who tells whom, but they say that it is called forth by the Finnist. And we know Finnist was the acorn that Lorne picked up, which holds the power of
Yeah.
Raist, right? And Lorne at some point says that she buried the acorn in the garden. So it's like it sprouted from the acorn.
But
The
what is a
Azar.
Finnis?
in this case, I don't think we know yet like what it is
Okay.
as a generalized definition. In this case, we know it is an object that holds the bulk of Wraith's power. So it's probably
Okay.
something that can hold power of some sort.
Okay. But it was created by the people that trapped or raised, right?
Yeah, I think they
Yes.
separated him from his power,
Okay.
and for some reason left the thing right there in his burial ground. But maybe that's
Yeah,
part of the burial process. I don't know.
not great planning. That's a great point. You think you'd be like, let's like take that as far away from him as
Yeah.
possible, just on the off chance he gets raised from the
Yeah.
dead.
Need some
That's
cryptography
crazy.
lessons.
Maybe he needs to stay there or something. I wonder.
I will say on
Yeah.
very briefly on the note of like very cool shit that happens in this series, because there's a lot of it. Raced coming back and like not even being bothered by the fact that his body is destroyed by the dragons, and it's just his like spirit, his power is so extreme that he can just leave his corporeal form and go and possess someone else, like no big deal. Like it's just not a big deal to lose his body. He's okay. It's just awesome. I don't know. That's it. End of sentence.
Okay.
And the Finnist also shows up as an apparition. That who was it who was fighting it? Was it there was somebody who was battling the actual Finnist? It was one of the mages,
Tool.
I think.
Tool.
True. Oh, like Tool. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Who was
Tool, because it was the old IMAS Jagged,
right? Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, but
Yeah.
the finish is not jagged. It's
No,
right.
It is.
but while that was happening, I mean, Tool fought the like earthen version like of Raced, and then
Okay.
he got
Yeah.
absorbed into the Fennec. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I was so the last 3 chapters or something. I just at some point I completely lost what's going on because it was jumping way too much, and I didn't know who these people were, and I didn't know what they're trying to do. So I was it kind of all went over head, kind of. It's yeah, I mean, that is
Yeah.
one criticism I have of this book. It's the ending. Most of our book, like, it's fine. Like, there are things which you don't know and you're put into it, but usually there's enough of a narrative thread of what's happening that you can follow it without knowing everything. And the little things are like, oh, it's kind of interesting. I wonder, right? But here, it's kind of like there's like so many characters within the same chapter that are doing things, and you don't understand why they're doing half of the things they're doing or how that happened. And so I think there's nothing you can like anchor to. Like there's no basic storytelling thread you can anchor yourself just to enjoy the story without knowing all the other information. Right. So I don't think it's like the first book, I don't like it as much as a single book because of this ending, because it's too confused. The other ones I feel are better at doing just like having a thread you can follow throughout the whole thing.
Well, I think this book worked a little bit better for me than it did for you because
Mhm.
the stuff with Raced, that happens before the end. Because
Yeah.
then the end is kind of like wrapping up the stuff with Vorkin, going after the what was his name, Barak, and stuff like that. You know, characters I'm a little bit more attached to, things I care a little bit more about. We
Mhm.
got the bridge burners. You know, they call up Dujak, hey, we're pulling out. We find out what's happening. You know, they're getting ready to lose Pale, and I do
Yeah.
get kind of drawn back into the things I do care about. So
Mm.
while the race ending in this book, yeah, it really probably didn't work for me originally. Um, that last chapter and a half or whatever did work better for me
Mm.
because it brought back everything to what I cared.
See, I felt similarly to you, Dan, on my first read, but I vibed with it this time around. I don't know. I could follow it more easily. I
Mm.
think knowing the characters better and having a better idea of kind of what they were going for and what was driving them,
Yeah.
I could follow it more. And also certainly having a better understanding of how Azath houses function and what a Fenest is, and that definitely helps. Although I will say there are still like all the magic in the series mysteries, and it's not all, it isn't a Brandon Sanderson magic system where like down
Yeah.
to like the energy levels needed to like how they're doing things. It is still cryptic, but
Mm.
I did find it easier to follow what was going on after I looked up to be like, why was Mammoth possessed by Race? Which I'm fully did. After it happened, I went on the internet and was like, I don't understand. I have to be missing something. And lo and behold,
Mm.
later in like the next chapter, they explain why it happened. But oh
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Fair
Just
enough.
just imagine the trust you, or the the guts to put so many things that are explained so much later in the series, just to put these little details in, and
Yeah.
just to tell the reader, like, this book is just published, but it'll make sense in about 5 years.
I guess.
I mean, that's pretty wild.
That is wild. That is, yeah, that's insane, actually.
That's true to a certain extent with a lot of the elements of magic, but I'm trying to remember how much, like, it did feel very chaotic to me the first time around. Like, I had no idea what was happening at any given point, but I felt like there were some places of sort of convergence, so to speak, where things made sense. Like for instance, I was my first time around, not this time because I knew what was going on. The thing that was growing where Rayleigh and the others were hanging out,
Mm-hmm.
the stone that was apparently also wood that started to look like a house. It that felt very like that was one of the what the hell is going on. But then when they explained just the three sentences of, oh, okay, this is actually something that traps power and it grows out of a finist, that sort of helped settle, like there were these chaotic moments, but through my first read also I felt like there were moments that sort of helped settle and pull some things together. It still wasn't complete, and I did go away feeling like there was a lot more that I need to understand, and knowing that there are
Yeah.
9 more books always helps. But that did feel it didn't feel quite as off to me as it seems to have been for some of you. But I'm trying to figure out
Mm.
why that is. I think there were just 2 or 3 points that brought it all together for
Mm-hmm.
me.
I
Well, and I think what you were saying is also, with the Azat house, it was eating magic, because then we also have Rallick who's sitting there covered with his
Mm,
Otaro dust,
Yeah.
which is magic deadening, and it's stunting the growth of this thing. So
Yeah.
clearly
yeah.
this thing has some relation to magic. It absorbs magic, and this thing that is toxic to magic is stopped slowing it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to explain what I am 90 something percent sure happened without any spoilers of the future books, because I just went back and looked over the scene, and I'm pretty sure uh, this is what happened. So, Raced possessed Mammoth, right? At the
Yeah.
same time, the Finist was basically, or no, the Azath house started like sprouting, and someone had the Finist.
Why did Lorne put the Finist there?
It was that, yeah, the Finist. Did the Finist birth the Azath house? I think that's what happened. The Finist
Mm.
birthed the Azath house.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of action happens, and Raced reclaims the power of the Finist. That is why he appears as like a wooden being. So when we hear about the Finist fighting people, that is Raced fighting people. That is him with his power, his personal power that he reclaimed from the Finist. Yet at the same time that was happening, because as Shannon mentioned, the Azath house has this connection with magic, and this Finist in particular, it started eating Raced slash the Finist and
Mm.
essentially sucking it inside of it. And so while Raced was combating Tool and Perrin was the other one, who was fighting it with his lucky sword, Raced got eaten by the Azath house.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So Raced reclaimed his power, became a big wooden monster. Tool and Perrin fought him, but they didn't ultimately have to do anything, and Tool actually like called Perrin off because the Azath house, which had been planted with the Finnest, redevoured the power that had birthed it,
Okay.
aka Raced. And
I
his
don't hate
Finnest.
Orphan, but I feel like I would have probably enjoyed it more if it was a bit longer, these chapters, just to put more description of like the situation and what's happening. Like because a lot of the time I had like the characters, but I had not much context of where exactly this was or what was going on around it. So I feel like in this case I would have enjoyed it more if it just took a bit more time.
I think part of what's so confusing about that sequence in particular
Yeah.
is that everyone starts in their POVs, like Perrin, for example, referring to the being that is Raced as the Finnest,
Mm.
because that's how they identify. They don't know what he is. They don't realize he's the Jagged Tyrant. Like Perrin doesn't know he's fighting the Jagged Tyrant there.
Yeah.
The Finnest is essentially like, I mean, we'll get into it more. I'm actually
I
not.
mean, do they know about the Finnest? How do they know about the Finnest?
It's like this seed of power that births Azath houses. At least that's much we can definitely tell from this book. And I think there's more to
Yeah.
it than that. But basically, my understanding is Perrin believes he is fighting the thing that created the Azath house, which is true and also not true, because that thing was also Raced. And he doesn't realize he's fighting Raced,
Yeah.
which
That
is why
was
he never refers to him as the Tyrant. And why it gets confusing, because they start just referring to the Finnest as if it is alive, but as if it were something separate than Raced, while at that point it's Raced trying to kill people,
Mm.
which is so convoluted. I feel like I'm about to get cross-eyed saying this, but that's what's going on. I think I'm like 90% sure.
Did the
So-
Finnest? Sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
Oh, well, no, if you're gonna say about the Finnest, you go.
Oh, I was saying, did the Finnest manifest as Raced because Raced, like Mammoth Raced, had started to reclaim the power of the Finnest, or was it just
Yeah.
part of the process of becoming the Azath house that it manifested as also the thing that it used to be?
I'm pretty sure by that point Raced had actively started or completed reclaiming his power. He was
Okay,
attracted
okay.
to it. If you remember, he was looking for the Finnest and he identified where it was. And then it's like we cut and suddenly there's this wooden being sprouting from the Azath house. And that is because Raced is actively, like by that point, Mammoth Raced is dead, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Like I think he's been offed. And so
That
this is Raced, and that's how, and I'm 100% certain that it is Raced when it gets sucked back into the house.
Yeah.
but not
Okay.
Mammoth Raced.
No,
It's
not
been
Because
exploded, right?
Mammoth Raced is blown up by Hedge. So there was
Yes.
the blowing up scene happened after the finished Paran showdown, because I remember thinking, oh, so these are two different people. This is not the Mammoth Race that Paran saw. Because I was feeling bad at that point that he killed Mammoth. And then it turned out that he hadn't, but Hedge went and blew him up. But I could be remembering that out of order. But the other question I had was, do we know why, like I'm sort of stealing Dan's question here, but do we know why Lorne buried the Finnest? What was she trying to accomplish with that? It feels, did she know that an Azad house was
Yes.
going to come out of it, or was that
No.
some side effect that she wasn't prepared for?
I think the latter. My understanding, this is one of the things I think I understood better this time around, is she planted it there specifically to attract Race to Darujistan. Because the whole point was she wanted Race to fight Amanda Rake. So it was essentially like, I know he's going to go after his power. So if I plant this in the ground here, he will come after it, raise hell, and I can, wipe my hands of all this and leave and deal with the aftermath.
Oh. Yeah, I was wondering why he put her specifically there instead of a random place in the town. That's what I was kind of wondering. Because
Chance.
it is just convenient that everything happens at but I guess it's sort of lines up with the things that they say that power attracts power. So maybe
Yeah,
it's just another case of that.
I do think it is that.
Okay, I see. I guess another thing I
Shannon, you were
didn't
going to say
understand
something.
about.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Hmm?
I think
Well,
Shannon was going to say something,
okay.
sorry, and then we'll
Oh,
come
I
back to
was
you.
Go
just
ahead.
well, I was gonna. I know Steve's got to leave before too long, and he left some questions in our forum. Is there anything you wanted to ask specifically, Steve?
I don't think we can probably answer too many of them. So I'll let you guys decide which ones to answer. But in a
Well, you
nutshell,
asked why did Crocus throw the coin in the water at the end?
yeah, it seemed a
Hmm.
little strange.
Well, I figured it was just his way of getting off the train before it wrecked. Like he knows his luck's gonna turn at some point. Might as well stop while he's ahead.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think he decided he
Fair enough.
didn't want to deal with it anymore. Again, it cut in the strings.
But for it to be
Yeah,
something that everyone's after, it seemed kind of weird to just like casually throw it in the water. Like, don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is a little laissez-faire. He's lackadaisical about it. It does occur to me as we're talking about this, yet another Lord of the Rings parallel,
Yeah.
where at least it's thrown into water instead of the fires of Mount Doom.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing I don't understand about the coin is, well, one, why do people want it? And two, what's the purpose of why did Opon create this coin? Like, what's Opon's plan? I don't understand what's going on with him.
Could not tell you. I think to just
Okay.
create chaos, but go
Yeah, I think in this book it seemed like Shadow Throne was trying to do something, and then he was real mad at Opone because Opone was clearly trying to do something chaotic, something that was messing with his plans. And yeah, we Opon had two things in play here: his sword Chance and Perrin, and the coin with Crocus.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does anybody here have any ideas like exactly what was accomplished? Like the sword, I don't know. Like it ends up in Cotillion's hands. Like I don't know what it really planned. Except for Perrin took to heart the advice he was given: give this sword to your worst enemy. And so he
Yeah.
gave it to. He's like, yeah, here, you take it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, and then the coin. I mean, the coin clearly worked uh for Crocus. It kept him alive so many times. Um,
But why does Opon
I
want
don't
to
know.
keep him alive? I don't know. Yeah, that's sometimes what I have trouble with when reading these books or some of the characters in these books. It's just like I don't understand why they do things or why certain things happen. I think I had the discussion before when there was the Tattersale Reborn and stuff like that. I just like I understand the mechanics of what's happening. Like these things happen, but I don't understand why they're happening. So it kind of makes it hard for me to be invested in
Well,
their story. You know what I mean?
Perrin was after Sorry, so that kind of makes sense that they
Yes.
made Perrin their agent. Like, okay, so
Yes.
Perrin's after Sorry, so and now Crocus runs into Sorry, and then now there's something kind of going on there between those two. But that kind of so I don't know. I don't know if that was
Hmm.
somehow open planning that like we'll put Crocus in the path of Sorry, and like these two have chemistry. Like I mean, I'll say Apsalar, the girl underneath, not Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, definitely has some kind of chemistry with Crocus. I mean, there's something going on there. Was that the plan? Was to somehow introduce these two? Like I don't know. I don't know
So
what the
was
plan was,
Alpon
except
trying to oppose Shadow Throne in what he was trying to
I
do?
mean, Shadowthrone seems to act like it. Shadowthrone is
Okay.
furious with Opone during this. We don't, but
Yeah.
I don't know what. I mean, does anybody have any ideas? What
Oh, that's an
was
interesting
Shadowthrone's
theory.
plan for this? Because I
Yeah,
don't know what Shadowthrone was really up to.
my thought was just causing chaos, like literally just being chaos bringers, and like that's just inherent to their nature, and so that's they picked people who were poised in
Hmm.
interesting places.
But it didn't seem like it didn't work out for them because like the sword he ended up being threatened by Paran with the sword and other things. So it seemed more liability for them than doing anything actually useful, right?
I
'Cause I
think
don't see them accomplishing anything. Like I don't see where they are now than at the beginning.
Gods in this series are definitely not all knowing.
yeah.
Mm,
They clearly don't. In fact, even in this, Cruel, who is we're given to be like this ancient god,
yeah.
his plan didn't work out. He
Didn't do
Mm,
like my
anything.
plan was to grab him and pull him into chaos,
mm,
raced, and that didn't happen. So
fair enough.
like if this ancient god can't get it right, then Shadowthorn's been a god for like 10 years. He doesn't, and Opon, we have no idea.
That is quietly
Mm,
hilarious that like Karul like goes for it, doesn't succeed with race, and then he just goes back to Krupp and is like, "Well, I failed. Looks like he's possessed another body. Whoopsie." Oh,
Yeah, with Open, I just got the sense that they are naughty children who ended up biting off more than they can chew, but they're just like, yeah, we want some of this fun. There's just too much orderly planning going on. Let's sow some chaos because even the
I
people that they were helping, it didn't feel like they were all on the same side or working towards something that would help them as like a singular
yeah.
goal, right? Uh, Cotillion slash Shadow Throne, they wanted something to do with the bridge burners, and they have a vendetta against the Empire. They weren't causing chaos in multiple places with opposing agendas. But
yeah.
Opon, though I'd have to work it all out in my head properly, but it didn't seem like it were two people who were directed towards the same goals. There was some guy from
Yeah.
Darujistan, some guy from the bridge burners, and it what I
Mm,
I think we talked about this before. It's not. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that they didn't have any specific goal. They just wanted to
mm,
not
yeah.
let the other gods get what they wanted, and they just happened to get
Yeah.
in Shadow Throne's way. I don't even think they were deliberately trying to hurt his plans. They just happened to get in his way. Maybe
Mm,
that's
I disagree with that. I think
no.
Shannon was onto something talking about this is like gods playing with other gods,
Mm,
playing their divine game of chess. I do think it's driven by this maybe innate need to cause chaos, and it wasn't like,
mm,
you get the sense with Shadow Throne that he is very much playing a long game and is actively making decisions, knowing or expecting where they're going to go, and then having to deal with, different variables changing. Opon, I think, kind of, you know, drops a piece and watches where it goes. And or like, like aims a gun and like fires. I don't know the right metaphor here, but I think it is more like less planned out, more intentionally chaotic. And I think Opon was essentially throwing their chaos against Shadow Throne in particular.
mm.
I think this was a godly
mm,
like battle
But
going out.
how would they know that, okay, well, we put the coin here. Maybe just a guy randomly picks up the coins and does nothing with it, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that happens that characters that are not connected then suddenly connect, and the
But
things that they got before somehow do things when they
okay,
interact.
if you drop if the ring of power randomly drops in front of you, are you not going to pick it up?
Yes, but
It's
like,
the same thing.
but then like, okay, if I think about the Lord of the Rings analogy, I guess in the first book it's just like a little trinket, it doesn't matter, right? In the second book, Frodo doesn't do anything with it until someone tells him what to do with it, right? Right? He just has it. He doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't know what it is, right?
I mean, it's slowly corrupting him.
I guess. But like he just kept it there until Gandalf came and said, "Oh, you need to go throw it away because it's this and this and this," right?
Right.
So it's kind of like there's a purpose and I don't know, there's a reason why things end up being important, I guess. I just don't understand how that worked. I don't know.
The coin is infused with their power, which is
Yeah,
why it is lucky
yeah.
and like the sword. And so they drop it, and so just its sheer I believe it's just like its sheer magical presence attracts Crocus to
Mm,
pick it up.
mm. I guess you can always say it's always like power attracts power, and that
Right.
kind of fixes everything in a sense.
Which I think is
But yeah.
kind of the goes to Steve's point, circling back, of like he does just kind of casually give it up, and I think that's kind of the
Mm,
point.
yeah.
because it's like I don't want anything to do with that.
Fair enough.
We'll see if that's the last time he has to deal with magical shenanigans.
Focus? Or
Yeah.
okay. Wait, he comes up again? I don't remember. He comes up again. The next book.
Right.
We'll see.
I don't.
There's also something that Krull tells somebody, I think Race, that mortals mortals have gotten a lot more powerful than gods, that mortals can kill gods. So I think the turning what's the word I'm looking for? Never mind.
Hmm.
But the fact that it
Shannon, you're muted if you were saying
yeah.
something there.
I was gonna say I actually have that pulled up as a quote right now, because
nice.
it was what I was gonna say in the quotes. It's a figure left, the figure's Krull, a low rumble. You're a fool, Raced. In this age, even a mortal can kill you. The tide of enslavement has reversed itself. It is now we gods who are the slaves, and mortals are masters, though they know it not. Which is such a great quote, and moving forward in the series, that's important to know. It's something that I definitely didn't clock first time I read this book.
Mm.
But yeah, mortals have a lot more power over the gods than they think.
Yeah, so backfiring, that's the word I was looking for. So Opon's plan backfiring with him dragging with Paran dragging the brother inside Dragnipur. I think they didn't see that coming for sure, and that just happened because I think they didn't guess that, were nowhere close to guessing that Paran could turn around and fight back. They just saw him as a tool who would do what they wanted. So
Yeah. Agreed. Exactly. He cut his strings.
yes.
I'm gonna run that into the ground.
I like it though.
You're gonna
you
hate
are
Pinocchio
inserting
once
it
I'm
into
done with
places.
this.
Please don't. I like the phrase right now. Don't make me hate it. But we can do the other question Steve had. Who or what is now protecting Sori / Upsalar, or are we not supposed to know yet? I think it's Riga, right? Who was protecting Sori, the thing inside Sori's head that's filtering out Cotillion's memories when he was possessing her. I think. Oh, and Mallet says it's the saddest thing he's ever seen. That broke me a little bit.
Now, I had a question, because Mallet asks, he doesn't know if this was intentional or what. I mean, what do we think? Do we think the witch woman was protecting Sari, or was she actually trying to, like, possess Sari when she was dying, and then this kind of backfired because she ended up taking the brunt of Cotillion? I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to know the answer, but it was just something I thought was interesting.
I wasn't sure. Is she still inside Sori's brain somehow? Like, does she still have... Is she just like a power, or is she like a person inside her brain or her soul or whatever? You know what I mean?
Well, it sounded like, from what Mallet said, she was a person. She put herself in there. And
Yeah.
then Cotillion came in, and then she kind of like protected Apsalar from the
now that
Fisher
she's
girl
inside her.
from the full force. So now he's gone and she's still there. I don't know. Like, is she? I don't know. Like, are we given, like, was she too damaged to be coherent, or
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, that's
like,
what
maybe
does
she
anybody
could
think?
possess Sori? Could she? Maybe.
That was kind of his thought, but clearly she doesn't by the end. So I don't know. Like, so I don't know. That kind of goes to, was she protecting Sari, or was she? Because I think when she first showed up, she seemed to know what the future, like what was going to happen. So maybe she did jump into this girl when she died to protect her.
Or maybe
Like,
she
knew
saw it
this
as
was
the
going to
only
happen.
way to survive because she knew she was going to get chosen. So it's like, oh, I need to hide myself somewhere.
And that's kind of what she says in the beginning.
Right.
But
Is
I
she?
mean,
Okay.
I do think that there is the possibility that, yeah, maybe she did kind of do this to protect. Because if she can see the future, then why can't she just, like, leave?
Well, maybe she can see like 10 seconds in the future or something.
I think
Or
she can see
40
further than that.
seconds. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it is unclear. It is definitely
Yeah.
mysterious.
They just said she was
I,
like a hedge witch or something, like and not a very powerful one. So I wouldn't expect her to be able to see that much
Sh
in the future or very
sh
clearly. I don't know.
She is kind of wiped from Apsalar by the end of the book, isn't she?
I don't know.
I
I
think
think
she
Mallet
is.
added some protections. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
My understanding, it seems to me like she protected Apsalar, and then by the end of this book, I don't think her personality is really there anymore.
Oh,
I think
really?
that
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think so
and
too. Because I mean,
it's gone.
Mallet does mention that like he can't sense any other presence. There's nothing going on there.
I mean,
And
maybe she's hiding because, like
right, that is a
the
possibility.
Cotillion and whatever, they didn't sense her presence in the first time, and they're
Right.
pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Mm. But Mallet also says that she's dying and won't stick around for very long. That's why he needs to
Mm,
do something to uh,
true.
buffer what she's been doing. And I think we know two things for a fact from the first chapter. One, that Rigga possessed her to protect her, because she says, when she's rattling off her prophecy, she says, "Now listen, bury this deep. Rigga will preserve you because we are linked, you and I, but it is all I can do, understand?" So I think she does possess her with the intention of protecting her. But then, and we also actually see the possession. I didn't notice this the first time around, but I highlighted it. As soon as I think she dies, Sorry speaks in Rigga's voice. She says, "Never mind the
Hmm.
candles," she mumbled in a thick, odd voice. "They are gone, aren't
Mhm.
they now? Just a scattering of bones, never mind." And then she switches to speaking as the fisher girl
Yeah.
that Sorry used to be. So we actually see the act of possession here
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed the first time around, or the second time around. But
That's creepy.
yeah, we do. Yeah.
I guess if she was trying to protect Sorryville, maybe she shouldn't have been so rude at the beginning. I don't know. It's kind of very.
Yeah.
She was very mean, and then suddenly
Yeah, I think
switches. I don't know.
what happened there was, I don't think she was mean so much as overwhelmed by the visions that she had. Like, I think she was seeing something happening, like getting her prophecy in real time, and she needed to urgently transfer that information to the fisher girl. That's the sense I got. Like, I don't, and in the process, for some reason, she grabbed her head. But
Okay.
yeah, it felt less rude and more urgent to me. I'm not sure if
Oh,
that's right.
really?
But yeah.
I thought it was just, I don't know, very
Mm.
mean old woman. That's how it felt reading it. I don't know. But
Yeah,
Was there anything else?
And the only thing I had that we haven't already talked about is I guess the potential romance between Paran and Terracell. I don't know. I didn't pick up on chemistry there prior, or did I just miss it? Maybe I didn't write it down.
yeah.
Well, they slept together earlier. You mean like way back when? Before she died?
Yeah, maybe I forgot about it. It's been, but
Yeah.
it was kind of.
I mean, it's like it fades to black, I think, and it's implied, doesn't? Isn't it?
They
So yeah.
explicitly sleep together.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Right?
think the way it's
Yeah,
described, it's like if you're not paying
Yeah.
attention, if you're reading
Yeah,
quickly,
yeah,
maybe you could have, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Especially if
Yeah.
it's one time or something.
It
The
is,
one
it's
time it's
literally one.
described,
Yes, it's
right?
literally one
they
time.
definitely slept together. I would say Perrin does seem hung up on her during certain parts here of the second half of the book. Um, I don't know if just romantically, and also more that she died
Yeah.
protecting him. So romance,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say nothing. Who knows? Maybe
She's
maybe
also
they'll have kids
back.
together one day.
Maybe we should have been in Pran's mind and be like, oh, she was smoking hot. I wish I could, best sex ever.
Well,
Then I could understand it, like, okay, well,
we went from the second apocalypse to this. So not very many implied acts in that other series. So
That's
I'm
true.
just adjusting.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. And Dan, did we get to the thing that you wanted to talk about earlier when we were talking
Yeah.
about Lorne? Or okay,
Well, I did
and
talk about my thoughts on the first book. Well, the ending of the first book. That's what I wanted to say, mainly.
okay, nice.
Especially because I don't
And
remember this
Steve,
being an issue in other books as much.
mm,
But yeah.
interestingly for me, some of the other endings not quite chaotic, but I understand less because I understand less about what's going on. Just the very ending. Everything else up to that, more or less okay with it. But the way things come together in most of the books, I find it difficult to wrap my head around. Oh no, Steve's gone. Okay. We didn't get to talk about the other thing he wanted to discuss,
No.
which was the humor of the Marines, I think. But we'll maybe talk about it next week. But so we did Dan's thing. I forget what Shannon's thing was.
I guess, sorry, about the endings. I guess some of the thing about the ending of these books is because they have to set up the next book, kind of, and set up things for the next book. So there's a lot of like non-conclusions because they need to present things that are going to happen later on, right?
Yeah, I love that we
The
get.
only setup for the next book, I would say, was Dujek talking about Seven Cities, is going to be an open rebellion.
Well, talking about what's it called, the prophet or something coming from the south, it's also set up for a different
Yeah,
book, right?
The Panion Seer is
Yeah,
book
that's
three.
book 3.
Here. Yeah. So set up for both of them, sort of.
But yeah, the next book that actually involves these
Ah,
characters.
yeah, okay.
Carl, were you going to say something?
I talked about the fate, and I liked the duel between Rallick, because their whole thing was to get Cole back to the state and get him back, which they do, and then and I love how fast he took out what's his name?
Ocelot?
Turbinor.
Turbinor.
Oh yeah.
Turbinor, and I didn't really realize until I think it was Vorkin told him later on or something or a little more made a how many magic protections he had around himself, and it was it's because he had put all that Odatarl stuff on himself that he sliced right through it and killed him in one paragraph, like I said.
I
just thought that was great, and also that made sense, because Turbinor was known as this great duelist that did everybody's well, no, he wasn't a great duelist, he just had magic on him.
And he was so
he was always a poser.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
He didn't think for even 2 seconds. Anomander Rake is showing up. Sure, he doesn't know who he is, but the guy is big with a giant sword, and he's still not considering the fact that he might lose, which is really funny to me. But later it was explained that he had magical protections, therefore the overconfidence. So, but yes, I like short action scenes where people just get killed after a lot of bluster about how wonderful they are. Just chop them down, 2 seconds, done. Those are my favorite kind.
It is one of those tropes that is always charming. I always smile reading it or seeing it in a movie. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, especially because Turbinor is such an ass. It was good to just see Rallick Nom just show him what's what.
I do hope every time I read it though. Yeah, I always hope that maybe one time the arrogant asshole is actually really good. I think maybe it does happen once in what is it? The first Lore trilogy maybe? Something like that. That the actual guy that's boasting and everything is really, really good, but I don't know.
There's more
happen.
that if it's the scene
yet, I don't know.
If it's the scene I think you're talking about, there's a little more going on there.
But I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
There's some magical interference, but I don't know. I don't want to spoil.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I just wish he was not as predictable.
I think it's more of a thing in anime when the protagonist gets really powerful and will just stomp people sometimes.
Yeah.
To show that they're really powerful.
I don't know. But it is cool sometimes to see a character that is confident, but also, has something to be actually confident about. Because usually they're just they don't say anything and they're really good, or they say a lot and they're really bad.
Yeah, that's true. That is the two polar the poles there, right?
Yeah.
Seems to fall to one or the other. I do love, I mean, on that, it doesn't say anything and is really badass. Animander Rake just
Yeah.
exudes cool. He is just so cool. This
Mm,
his entire time, and the fet feet. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
that,
I've read it and never
Fate.
heard it spoken.
right? We
I assume it was
Is it
like a
fate?
French
I,
word, fait,
It
but I don't
is.
know.
It's French. Yeah.
mm,
It's also English, so I don't know if they changed the pronunciation in English. Uh,
That's a fair point. Fair point. But I just love his behavior through
mhm.
it all. He's just like very calmly badass the entire time, and it's just,
yeah.
oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And I
Sometimes it's
love that
been,
he's.
yeah.
Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I
I
was
was
just
saying I
gonna say
love that he's.
sometimes he's.
Go ahead, Dan. Okay.
No, you cannot
I
do
will
this
stop.
again. You can't do this again.
I'm talking.
Yeah, Varsha, you talk.
I love that he asks Baruch to introduce him by his real name, and nobody knows who he is. But Whiskey Jack is like, oh no, let's get the hell out of here.
That was awesome. Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah. Sometimes, I don't know, he's so tr like he seems trying so hard to be cool almost, but it's kind of funny. He's like
Nah.
almost edgy funny to me.
No, he's
It,
like an
it's
anime
just yeah.
Yeah.
character. I love it. I'm here for the shonen
what
anime character Animander Rake.
in this book, I will say I love Animander Rake. I think he is the most like metal character I've ever seen on page. Like unironically, like just he just works. Like he's got this sword that's bigger than him almost, and it steals souls and ties him to like a carriage in another world. And I mean, it's absurd, and I love it everything about it.
Yeah. I just imagine him, I don't know, in his house just doing his pose and seeing, oh, which one looks more
I,
cool, or like the hair and the mask is like, oh, this would be very
sure.
cool because I'm a dragon,
As like opera is playing in the
Yeah,
background, he and like
Hmm.
the ceiling's very high and got like
yeah,
long
yeah,
pillars and just like torches blazing, probably
Hmm.
not even natural colored torches, and yeah, very big mirror. No, for sure.
Now, without going into spoilers, I will say in future books you might hear me say the word emo
yeah.
attached to
Okay,
him.
okay.
But in this book, I adore him. Every single page he's on.
Hmm, fair enough.
I love it. I love an emo badass boy. I'm here for it every time with a cool sword. I love it. And they're immortal. I eat it up.
Yep. Same. Did anybody else imagine Turbinor wearing a turban the whole time? Like just because of his name?
Yes.
Or was that just me?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I also did.
No.
I couldn't help it either. I would tell myself no, and every time I pictured him, he would have a turban on his head.
Yeah. And it's not just a simple turban either. It's got like little chains of pearls on it and a
Oh yeah.
feather.
Giant. Yeah. A big old jewel here or something in the middle
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
Yep. I mean, yeah, his name's Turbanor. Of course, he's gonna wear the biggest, fanciest, magnificent turban in the entire city.
Yep, exactly. Carl, did we get to your topic yet?
My topic was the mic, so we've gotten to it every second of this conversation.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay. So, what are some other, I guess, smaller events that happen? There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up was just the utter compassion with which they deal with Uppsala now that she's no longer possessed, and with the absolute gentleness that they handle her with. Like when when she tells Kalam is it, that maybe you are an old friend of mine, and he chokes on himself, but he doesn't tell her that they weren't friends, that she tried to maybe kill him a few times.
I
No,
thought
she never did that.
I
But yeah.
thought she was. Well, maybe that's spoilers, actually. Maybe that's spoilers. I'm not gonna say.
The and another line of compassion the way Krupp frees Circle Breaker and lets him go home. No strings attached, nothing, just be free.
Yeah.
That
You've done good work.
might be, I don't want to say my favorite moment in the entire book, but like, yeah, like he did that. That he let this guy go and gives him like an estate or something.
Yeah.
Um,
A noble
I mean,
title, I
it's
think.
wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, he's worked for him for all these years as his like chief, I guess, sounds like his chief information gatherer, and now he's just gonna let him go and give him everything.
Guess so.
I mean, it's just, yeah, like it really did endear Krupp to me quite a lot.
Yeah. On that subject, what did everybody think of the reveal that Krupp is the eel? I think for all of us it was pretty obvious this time around, but the first time when you read it, what did you think of that? Was it obvious or was it kind of, oh, this guy?
I think maybe half or maybe 3/4 of the book, like you don't know exactly he's a Veil, but you kind of know he's someone important. And by
Yeah.
process of exclusion, you're like, I guess he must be that one. That's what I thought, sort of. I wasn't 100% sure, but I
Like-
kind of vague idea.
Like when they reveal it, it's kind of like your response is like, oh yeah, of course, it's got to be him.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, who else could it be? It's this, like I didn't necessarily know, but yeah, okay,
Yeah.
it's got to
It
be.
made sense, right? Yeah. I wasn't actively tracking it, or it wasn't information that I felt like I needed at any point. But once
No.
I got it, it was like, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
That's how I was on my first read too.
Yeah.
It's like I wasn't like overly invested in the eel's identity. I was like, okay, like some mysterious dude, like cool.
Yeah.
And when it was Krupp, it was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like Krupp's awesome. He is clearly way more powerful and more intelligent than he lets on. Like, yeah, that's Krupp.
Absolutely.
And I did want to say while we're on the topic of Circle Breaker, one thing I really loved reading because I'm one of the few people here that doesn't fear going to the wiki page. One thing I learned on it was apparently Stevenson has said that Circle Breaker was him putting himself in the book, and it's all based on the very last line of the entire book, which is from near in the bow, Circle Breaker slowly nodded to himself. The eel would be delighted with the news, not to mention greatly relieved. Then he returned to his attention to the west and wondered what it would be like, no longer anonymous to the world. And that was really the line, like no longer anonymous to the world. Like he's now written his first book. He's people are going to know his name.
Interesting.
And so I thought that was kind of cool.
Interesting.
That is cool. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think we've talked. Oh, I guess the only other little thing that stood out to me was Morelio sleeping with Lady Simsal and ditching her and like essentially like playing her by sleeping with her. How the
I think
turntables
I weirdly
turn.
didn't like Murillo as much this time around, because that was like cruel what he did. Like don't get me wrong, she's bad, but
Yeah.
that's cruel. Like what he did to her.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's definitely cold-hearted. He is a rake, not to be confused with Animander. Sorry. Sometimes the puns just they just come out.
Unplanned, but reasonable. But I did like the sort of fallout from the events of the night for Murillo and Rayleigh Norm, right? Their monologues after they accomplished this. For Rayleigh Norm, it was the one thing that had been giving him purpose all these few months, and he's like, okay, what do I do now? And with Murillo, I think he ends up killing someone, right? Yeah, or he does something. Was it just the betrayal of Simtal that
No, I think he kills someone.
Yeah, I thought
Maybe he
he
does.
did, but I couldn't remember who. But
I feel like he'd like maybe not. I don't know.
yeah, he has
It's not
this
anyone
moment of
important.
yeah. He realizes that he can't come back from this. That I had the monologue highlighted, and it was in chapter 23. It was well before that, but that was a fantastic moment of introspection too. That these things have consequences, both in terms of the losing the sense of purpose, as well as becoming a fundamentally different person now, because you can never come back from what you've done. That whole thought process that he goes through, I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I really appreciated their ending a lot more on this read through, I think,
Yeah.
because it's a lot
Yeah.
quieter than
Mm,
what goes on with the Malazans.
yeah. And we've been building up to that the whole book too, right? And I like that it didn't sort of take center stage in the ending, but it was a part of the ending. It was something that we've been building up on throughout the book. And that did come to a satisfying conclusion. This little side quest they have where they wanted to give back what his friend deserved, or get that back for him.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is fine. Like there's these big events, but the quiet moments, that might have been one of the most satisfying threads for me in this book. And it just worked, the whole thing, and giving our characters that moment of like quiet thought afterwards.
I love how much they love Crocus
Yeah.
and how they go to the ends of the earth to protect that kid. That gets me every time.
Yeah. Keeps
I
feeling
love how
left
much
out.
they love
and...
Crocus and
Go
how
ahead.
much I kind of hate him in this book. Like, you know, he's such an idiot.
He is so stupid.
I mean,
Mm.
he is so stupid. Every word and everything he does towards Chalice and like from the fate on is just like, what? Stop it! Like, just stop.
Yeah, I guess that's something we didn't talk about is the resolution there.
Yeah.
That
Good
was
life
when
at
he
sea.
kidnaps her. It is amazing. I love all that.
Yeah, she's
And
kind of like, what are you
but
talking
she
about?
gets
It's
saved.
like, what?
she didn't betray him.
But she gets
Yeah.
saved by Gorkus. Remember that. Gorkus saved her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she doesn't give a shit about him. She's like,
No.
why do you think
And
you're
like, yeah.
anything? Why do I think I care about you? Sort of.
Absolutely.
Which is
Yeah.
reasonable, right? Why she has her own life and
Yeah.
like one time.
Yeah, like you've literally only broken into her house and stolen something from her, and then returned it, which is kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah.
And then like now suddenly you're supposed to be my soulmate
Yeah.
or something. Like
But it's
what?
very teenager like. I can imagine myself thinking like that when I was that age, right?
Exactly.
So,
Like
Yes.
yeah.
he thinks that he is a much bigger deal in her mind than he actually is. And I love it. And it like the harsh reality that not only did she not betray him, she doesn't really think about him that much.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it. And he goes and, decides to go off on an adventure with his new, not quite girlfriend.
His new boo,
Hmm.
Apsalar.
Who he hates the fact that she's so kind to him and understanding. Why does she have to be so understanding? Why doesn't she fight? I found the Marilio section that I was looking for. First, I like this part where after he tells Simtal what he's done with Darbanor and basically killed her influence, the Lady Simtal was gone, and he dared not study too closely the creature in her place, because she's given up and she's sort of contracted into this pose of utter sadness, I think. And
Yeah.
then later on, he hadn't considered how he'd feel. Justice got in the way of that. A white fire he'd had no reason to look behind or push aside. Justice had seduced him, and he wondered what he had just lost. He wondered at the death he felt spreading within him. The regret following in that death's wake, so unanswerable it was, threatened to overwhelm him. I like that.
So while we're reading quotes, is this a good time to transition to quotes? Because there is
Yeah,
one that
let's-
So the very last epigraph, so for chapter 24, I want to highlight for a number of reasons, not least because it deals with Azath houses, which I know everyone has a lot of questions about, and it doesn't answer them all, but I do think it gives you some, albeit with poetic license, some insight into maybe a little bit more about the nature of Azath houses. So here we are. This is a poem titled Azath by a poet named Adefon, which is a name maybe to think about. I am the house, imprisoning in my birth demonic hearts, so locked in each chamber some trembling, enraged antiquity. and these roots of stone spread the deepest cracks in parched ground, holding forever the dream of fruit. Ah, pilgrims, come to my door and starve.
Hmm.
There's a lot to unpack there potentially, but
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that.
I think the next
It's
book has some stuff about Azov houses. I think I
It does.
remember. Yeah.
It is called Dead House
It
Gates.
does.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was at least one of the. So I think the way the word dead house was used in this book, it made me think it was it was the name of another Azat house.
It is.
Right?
Did they
is.
mention
They talk
two,
about it.
I think, other dead houses in this book, and one of them was the dead house.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We
Yeah.
know it's in Malaz.
Mm. And
Malaz.
Yeah,
and
and it's the one that's in Malaz City.
Yeah.
They say that. That is not a spoiler. They do say it. I was surprised. That was
Yeah.
actually one of the little
Yeah.
things that surprised me is they explicitly say that when they're talking briefly about Azath houses.
and that dancer and Kellenved, the emperor and his right hand man, right? Was that how Felicin referred to it in her poem?
Yeah.
Basically.
Were allowed entry to it, much like Rayleigh Norm and Vorken were. But the dead houses pick and choose who they allow inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which we're kind of given then that Kellenved and Dancer are now gods, but and then the Azath house let them in. What does that have to do with one the other? We don't really know, but that's just a thing that happened.
I wouldn't want to go inside a dead house. Personally.
Maybe it won't let you in.
The- something called the
Maybe I
dead
don't
house.
want to go in.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah.
Sounds like you don't have the makings of a protagonist, Dan.
I don't think I would. I don't think I want to do any of what these people do in the books. Right? I don't want any of that stuff going on.
Valid and fair.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
other people get randomly killed, so non-important people anyways. So
Also true.
yeah.
Yeah, the people that just go to work, do their job, go home, go to sleep,
Yeah.
live their lives. They don't make good protagonists.
Do you think it's higher probability of getting killed by being a background character or by being an important character? I don't know.
Probably
Which
important
book
character.
or show are you in? Is it a red shirt? Red shirt?
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends on
True.
depends on where you are. Like I feel like, some books it's just them unknown people that just get massacred
Yeah.
off.
I mean, in Pale, a lot of random people got killed. So in
Yeah,
the third book, a lot of random people get killed, I believe.
it really
So
I guess it's random. Like it just depends. Like, are you at the center of a
Yeah.
conflict? Like we were this close to all of Darujistan going up in flames.
yeah.
So I don't know. Certainly, as an important figure, you're in danger explicitly more often, but I guess you're easier to pick
You probably
off.
have more agency on
Right.
your fate, I guess. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't
I mean,
know.
I'm sure the
Interesting
random
question.
people think they have that too, except they aren't the ones being written about.
I don't know. I don't know how much agency you can have versus demigods and all that sort of stuff, I
Mm.
guess, without having, I don't know, being a mage or being a main character, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the guy that had a stall in the market square that Krupp stole the apples from, I don't think he has much agency over what happens with the tyrant.
That is
I
true.
don't know. It was an acorn that basically defeated the tyrant, so
I'm
maybe
sure it's not a normal acorn.
you're
Even
right.
when it started, it was I don't know if it was a normal acorn when it started off
Yeah, I don't
in
know
the
that it was
past, but I
ever
don't
a
know.
normal acorn.
See,
That's yeah.
you could write a story where that acorn accidentally ended up in the basket of this fruit seller who was selling acorns, and then that. No,
Yeah,
I'll
I
shut
mean,
up.
if I were to write a book that I wanted to write, I would write a book about a normal guy living his normal life in a fancy universe, but it's just his normal life. There's nothing special happening. It's just normal life.
There's one YA book called The Rest of Us Just Live Here, and the epigraph of each chapter is how these chosen ones are screaming and running off into the forest
Yeah.
and like doing all these insane things. And these guys are just living their lives, having friendships and figuring out how to talk to the girl and ask her
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Something like that. Or maybe like, I don't know, have you guys read Madame Bovary?
Mm-mm.
But kind of like I don't know. It's like this woman that reads a lot of books and imagines her, she's a protagonist, she's gonna.
Uh-oh.
Oops.
And Dan is back.
Uh-oh.
I guess his headphones died. Okay, we'll wait for you to come back. Can you hear us?
Uh-oh.
Okay. We'll let him come back and talk about Madame Bovary. But meanwhile, do you have any other quotes, Carl and Shannon?
I think that's it for me. I am so bad about marking quotes, so it's always the epigraphs I feel like I come back to. Unless there's like a very specific passage that stands out to me, and I can't think of any.
I think I mentioned already the only quotes that I had highlighted in mine.
I like the
That one about the gods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The opening epigraph of this book 7, the poem about the dawn of Gedeon. I guess this is a spring fest. The Lady of Spring is born anew. It is as if the gods themselves pause their breath. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
Also-
I mean,
Go ahead.
also the epigraph of Tamatha's children,
Yes.
I find compelling for a lot of different reasons. The language is beautiful, the lore it hints at, and the author is named Taborik, which is a name to look out for imminently.
We might meet them as early as 2 weeks from now.
And also, one thing I thought was cool was it talked about the clocks or whatever in there in Drujistan were designed by
Icarium or Icarium, how you say his
Icarium.
name?
Yes.
Icarium? Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool. Like I didn't pick up on that name the first time I saw it.
Interestingly,
Same.
that was one of the names that I did notice my first time around. And when he comes up in a later book, I had to come back and say, okay, I've seen that before. Because it's so cool what he's built and predicted. Like Rake says 1,000 years is not at all a long time for him. So, no, Dan, you can't hear us. Okay. Oh, you can hear us, but we can't hear you. Okay.
Oh no. We're currently playing charades with Dan. So there are a couple quotes back to back that stand out to me actually as I was flipping through. There is a mass within you, not for the beauty of the language, but just for the fact this is race addressing Krupp. So like IMAS are like pretty explicitly, they're like Neanderthals, which is very cool. And it took me a very long time to pick up on that. Actually, I think maybe someone on the internet had to point that out to me. But then the follow-up, Krupp's reply to Race telling him to grovel at his feet, I just adore. I love Krupp. Alas, the man replied, you are mistaken, sir. Krupp, this humble, weak mortal who stands before you bows to no man, be he Jagged or God. Such are the nuances of this new age that you are felled by indifference, made insignificant in your mighty struggles by lowly Krupp into whose dream you have ignobly stumbled. Krupp stands before you so that you may gaze upon his benign countenance in the last moments before your demise. Magnanimous of Krupp, all things considered.
Yeah,
I love
that.
man. I would die for Krupp.
Absolutely love it. Oh, I wanted to go back to that Tamatha's children poem. I like the poem, brought light into dark and dark into light, unveiling at last in cold, cold eyes, the children of chaos, which I think matches the lore of some mythology. Is it Greek? I forget what the goddess of chaos was, who I looked up for a previous discussion. But Tiamat also is goddess of salt sea and chaos, apparently. And these things are born out of chaos. So that name and the connection there also was interesting.
Another little D&D nod, Dungeons and Dragons, is Tiamat is a dragon god in that,
Oh.
and is the kind of primeval dragon Tamatha
Interesting.
in this. I mean, it's clearly Tiamat. I think they mention at some point Tiam's children
Yeah.
too is another name.
Tiamat. I think Rice says that Tiamat is strong in you or something to Rake.
Yeah.
That you're more Tiamat than, what is it, Kural Galain? I don't know what the other thing is. And Teast?
Yeah, no,
Andy?
you're right. Yeah, Carl Gillane.
Yeah.
Yep. Just another little nerdy nod there. One of the more
Yeah.
explicit ones, I think, because I don't know if the others are actual nods to like mythology or Dungeons and Dragons in the language. I mean,
Yeah. I also like when Paran tells Kalam, I'm not going to be very good in that fight. I'll maybe be able to give you 1 second and make that second count. When they're about to fight Lorne, I think. Yeah.
love the bromances. Always love
Yes.
the bromances.
Yep.
That might be my favorite thing about these Erikson books, are the bromance buddy duos that he does. Like, they're just great.
Yeah. Did we already talk about the fact that Rake just offered himself as the second in the duel?
Oh, no, we did not.
No,
That
we didn't.
was amazing and
Yeah.
made me love him even more. I forgot about it, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's my guy. That's my emo dark lord.
Yep.
Yes.
Even Rake knew that Turbinor was a total tool and
Yeah.
needed to go down.
And I love the reason he gives him that I'm as tired as Raylick as of your continuously talking, so I want you to stop. I don't want to have a whole discussion where you're deciding who will be second, so I will offer myself. Yeah, the oozing of confidence that we were talking earlier about, just how cool he is.
He's the coolest.
Yeah. I think that's all I had.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. And Paran kind of turning. Oh yeah, can you help me understand that? Did he bite Rice, or did a hound sort of
Yes.
manifest itself and bite Rice? And how did
I think.
Rude show up? Oops, now we lost
Oh
Shannon.
no, now we lost Shannon. Uh-oh, we're dropping like flies.
Bad night for headphones.
Yeah, I think my understanding is Perrin personally, with his own teeth, bit Raced.
That sounds painful. That's what I thought happened, but then Rude showed up, and then Shadowthrone came and lectured him about and Rude is unclear. He wants to hate this guy, but he feels a brotherly affection towards
Well, because
which is funny.
it was definitely, he was like possessed by the hound. I mean, we have seen now, I think, pretty clearly that his interactions with the hounds of Shadow have left an impact on him.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, okay. Now for real. That's all I have. Anything else to add? Carl or Dan, do you want to gesture anything else to us that you want to have?
What charades are we playing? Has anyone tried to see if we could get in touch with Steven Erikson to talk to him?
I haven't. I think Dan saying who, me? No. But, I haven't. I think Steve probably has a way to. I'll see. We can talk about that when he's back next time.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Be interested to. I definitely have some questions after going through this another time.
Yeah. I'm really happy to be rereading this series.
Me too.
Cool.
This is a fun read.
Mm-hmm.
On to Deadhouse Gates.
Yes, on to Deadhouse Gates, which I sort of almost plodded through because it was so high on the military fantasy elements the first time, like the military aspects of it. But knowing how it all ends, I suspect that this might go up to the top of my favorites in the series. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, with all that said, I think we'll start Dead House Gates in 2 weeks from now. We're taking a break next week. We're going to be reading up to chapter 2 for the next discussion. Thank you so much for listening if you're still here with us, or even if you listened to part of it, but you won't be hearing this. Then
Actually, if
thank
you
you.
listen to part of it, I hate you and I never want to see your ugly face.
What if they listen to part of it, but the parts they listen to are just this?
Then that's perfect, and I love them.
That's the chance acting. But anyway, we'll see everybody 2 weeks from now. Thank you so much for listening, and bye.